Hello my YouTube lovelies, and welcome to a vlog which gives you a slightly different insight into how I go about living in my van, particularly in winter. And when you live in a van full time, especially during the winter, I think the number one pain in the backside, if there is one, is probably to do with power. Certainly on my side of things. The power in my van is something which in time maybe I'd like to look at and do a little bit more with, but for the time being I've managed to come up with something which works well for me. However, as well as it works for me, sometimes I do have to do things to just make life a little easier. So I guess the biggest nemesis that you have when you're camping in a van, living in a van even, during winter, is the issue with solar. I have one 150 watt solar panel above me, and that primarily just feeds a 110 amp hour battery, and that battery's sole purpose really for me is just to power the diesel heater, because basically without the diesel heater, living in the van full time, especially in winter, would just be impossible, unless I was lucky enough to have a log burner, but I don't. So with that 150 watt solar panel, which is flat so it doesn't tilt, feeding the one leisure battery, I don't have a B2B charger or a split charger or anything like that, so I have no other means of charging that. Now that's something that I'd like to address in the future, but without that I am solely reliant on solar, and so that doesn't happen so much. So what I do in order to sort of keep going without having to resort to spending weeks on somebody's floor somewhere during the winter months, I tend to charge up wherever possible, and I kind of do a bit of a recharge for myself, to be honest with you. I spend 5 days a week at work, sometimes 7, it all depends on the amount of work and what's actually happening at the time. But if I do have a weekend, I tend to, if possible, if I know I'm going to go away, I will try to recharge my batteries at work. So I've got a 16 amp feed which I can plug into outside the workshop, so I'll just give the batteries a little top up. But failing that, and if the possibility is about and I can afford it, I will treat myself to a weekend away at a proper campsite. Now obviously campsites don't tend to be as popular over winter, so for the likes of me it works out really fine, because going back to that van life tag video that I did, the likes of your Dorothys and Georges, I actually don't really have anyone to bother here, because there's me, I'm in this campsite, and in fact where I am today there's just one other guy called Steve, who I met earlier, who's a van lifer, has been doing it almost as long as me, and it's just brilliant. It's just really, really nice and quiet. So when you're out of season, some of these campsites are really nice and quiet. And the great thing about having a campsite is that for me, what I do is it gives me a place where I know that I can be still for 2 nights, possibly 3 nights, have a relatively flat location to park, have access to electricity, drinking water, toilets, washing up facilities, bins, a whole caveat of little things which I guess a lot of us take for granted when you're living in a house and a flat. But for me this is an absolute treat, and I really look forward to these sort of weekends. It seems silly, but just to have the opportunity to be able to park up and put my step out, for example, and be able to step in and out of the van without having to jump up into it, makes a massive difference. Being able to put the wheel levelers out to have a truly flat floor, that for me is luxury. Plugging into electricity, being able to run the four-way and have my laptop running all day without running the battery out, being able to watch Netflix, do editing. It's just yeah, this takes my humble little home, which I love to pieces, and just makes it almost as good as, if not better, because the views are nicer, almost as good as living in a flat or a house. So I use these kind of weekends to recharge myself. Neewer and I have a chance to just chill and reset for the next week. It gives a chance for the battery to be fully charged. It gives me a chance to do some proper washing up, to empty my cassette, to give the van a good clean, and those little things which I suppose a lot of us can take for granted. For me, that is a huge plus. This particular campsite is brilliant. It's the first time I've ever been here. We're nestled on the edge of the Yorkshire moors. I can see the moors in the distance. I think it's called Oak Lakes, and it's got a system of loads of fishing lakes, and it's really quiet. I've had some rain. I think Storm Dennis is on his way in at the moment. I don't know whether it's going to hit later on, but it's a really nice little site. It's got a fishing tackle shop, it has a little cafe. I went there this morning, had a sausage sandwich and a coffee, and chatted to the ladies there, and it was really nice. So places like this are really important for me, and these are the things that enable me to live full time, to have these moments where you can reset, recharge, ready for the week ahead. And as I said, a lot of people probably take things like this for granted, and they are only small things, small little luxuries, which for most of us are just, you know, the norm. But for me to have these things, water, toilet, shower, bin, a place to just stretch out, is so important and such a nice thing. So hopefully this will give you a little insight into how I live my life in this van. As I said, these come sort of, I don't know, I treat myself maybe once, twice a month if I can, but probably once a month or so. And obviously when it comes to the summer, I probably don't do this as often, because these sites tend to be absolutely rammed, and the prices go up as well. And during the summer there's more opportunities to then go to the sort of wild campsites and places, and there's meetups and things like that to go to. So I tend to use these predominantly during the winter time, during the more difficult part of living in a van full time. So until the next one, enjoy yourselves. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up, write a little comment, and if you really like it, hit the subscribe button, and it'd be lovely to have you on board. So until the next time, cheers.